What's up everyone? Welcome to Jacqui at Home. Today we're making coffee cake cookies. This recipe combines two of my favorite things, coffee cake and cookies, into a match made in heaven. They are buttery, they're packed with cinnamon and brown sugar. They've got a really yummy streusel topping that just packs a delicious punch, and that is where we're starting today. And to make that, you're gonna start with a half a cup of flour, and then we're also gonna add in a third of a cup of brown sugar. And I like using dark brown sugar for this recipe just because it really ramps up the warm cinnamon and brown sugar flavors in this cookie. It's delicious. We're gonna add 2 teaspoons of cinnamon. And I know that might seem like a lot, but your girl loves cinnamon and it's just gonna make the most delicious streusel. And then of course, with anything sweet, you need to add some sort of salt to the mixture just to really ramp up the sweet flavors and bring everything out. So we're gonna do a hearty pinch of sea salt. To bring this all together, we need 5 tablespoons of room temperature butter. And that's really important because we're gonna mix this together. So you really want the butter to be nice and soft. The best way to mix your streusel together is with a fork, in my opinion, IMO. And we're just gonna fork it until it makes like a delicious looking crumble. It's gonna look kind of like wet sand. This is gonna take a minute, but through the magic of editing, look at that. Ah, it's like magic. Also, I literally sat here. It takes about 5 minutes for this to come together completely. You just have to really keep working it in with your fork and get your arm muscles ready, baby. This is your standard streusel recipe. Hot tip. You could add this to oatmeal, it would be delicious. If you're making muffins, you could make this and sprinkle it on muffins before you put them in the oven. It's delicious. You could also add oats to this and make it a streusel oat topping. You could also add this to pancake batter. So like you pour the pancake batter in the skillet or in your pan, and then you sprinkle some streusel in the middle, and then you flip it and the streusel's in the pancake. It's so delicious. Anyways, I want you to make these cookies as a whole, but memorizing a simple streusel topping is definitely something worth having in the old noggin. You know what I mean? All right, now that we have our streusel made, I'm gonna pop it in the fridge and keep it chilled while we make our cookie dough. You're gonna start with 8 tablespoons of room temperature butter. And then we're gonna do a mixture of 2 sugars. We're gonna do half a cup of brown sugar, and you can use light or dark brown sugar. And then we're gonna add a 1/4 cup of white sugar. Fun fact, do you know the difference between white sugar and brown sugar? I didn't know this until recently, which I feel embarrassed about, but white sugar is just regular sugar. You knew that. But brown sugar is white sugar with molasses mixed in. I'm gonna use my stand mixer. I'm gonna use this paddle attachment. All right, here we go. You wanna start it off slow so the sugar doesn't just like go everywhere, and then once it starts coming together, you can increase the speed. And it's really important to use room temperature butter so that way it mixes well with the sugars and there's no lumps or clumps. I'm gonna crank up the speed and let it go for like 2 to 3 minutes until all the sugars have dissolved into that butter and it's nice and fluffy. Since we're making coffee cake cookies, I thought it would be the perfect time to make a little afternoon pick-me-up. This is like one of my favorite daily activities, is making an afternoon coffee. So I'm gonna do that while my butter and sugars cream together. I lied, I'm not making a coffee, I'm making a chai. I've been really into iced chais lately. So I'm gonna add my chai mixture, and this comes together so fast. So I'm gonna do a little chai, and a little oat milk. Yum, look at that. I'm gonna leave a little room on top because I like to add a little vanilla creamer. Don't come at me for my creamer. This is so good, just a little bit. I'm also gonna add a little bit of cinnamon on top. And because we need the cinnamon for my cookies, I'm just gonna leave the cinnamon out. Give this a little mix. Yes, I love coffees, teas, coffee cake pastries, so I also love cookies. So these cookies are just like combining two of my favorite things. All right, so this is what you're looking for when I say your butter and your sugars are creamed together. It looks beautiful. It's like soft, creamy, kind of fluffy. It's perfect. And I like 1 egg and 1 egg yolk because the egg yolk is just gonna make these cookies that more decadent. Something I learned from Ina Garten, if you don't know who she is a queen in the kitchen. And when she's making cookies, cakes, any type of batter, and she has to add an egg, she always cracks the egg in a little bowl versus cracking it directly into the mixing bowl. And I love that little hack because you know what? Sometimes you can get a bad egg. Sometimes you can get a double egg. Make sure your egg is good to rock and roll, and then you're good. So we're gonna add 1 egg right in there. And then here comes the fun part. The easiest way for me to do this is just to crack it in half like this, okay? And then you're gonna use your fingers and you're gonna plop that yolk right into your fingers and let the egg yolk fall through the cracks in your fingers. All right, so in goes our yolk. Bloop. All right, we're also gonna add 1 teaspoon of vanilla, which I'm gonna eyeball in here. Perfect. Mix it until the eggs and the vanilla come together, and while that mixes, we're gonna get our dry ingredients ready. We got a Jacqui cam, and I just wanted to show you what it looks like in the mixer. We're whizzing away here. I know we said we were gonna do the dry ingredients, but I'm gonna take a quick sip of coffee first. If you haven't noticed, one incredible kitchen accessory we've got in the kitchen now is my book. Here she is. I wrote my very first cookbook last year, and it is beautiful. It is filled with recipes, and it's called My Dinner and Dessert Diary because there's a bunch of stories here. Every recipe has a different story attached to it, and I don't know, I'm really proud of how this book turned out. It's beautiful. So it's linked in the description below if you want to check it out. All right, got all the dry ingredients. That's good to go, and I need salt. Got it all. Now I think I'm ready. This looks good. I'm gonna turn this off. That's not off. So we're gonna start with 2 cups of all-purpose flour. And the oldest trick in the book, you can use the back of a knife to level out your flour. Perfect. I'm gonna plop it in here. Wonderful. All right, and sifting your ingredients can be kind of like, I don't know, in a little bit of a extra task, or maybe some people might see it as an annoyance, but it's definitely a step worth taking, and I promise you it will make for a better cookie in the end, and that's what you want. That's what I'm talking about. All right, there we go. All right, 1/2 teaspoon of baking soda and 1/2 teaspoon of baking powder. I'm also gonna do 1 teaspoon of cinnamon. And last but not least, I'm gonna do a hearty pinch of salt. So we have our dry ingredients all sifted, and I'm gonna give it a quick little mix here. And then I'm gonna turn my mixer on low. So you wanna slowly add in your flour mixture, and once it sort of mixes a little bit in, you wanna try to keep these as light and airy as possible. So adding the flour a little bit at a time will really help with that. Also, the second you add the last bit of flour, you wanna stop mixing so you don't overmix the batter, because that can also lead to a stodgy, dense cookie. Once the flour gets mixed in like that, it's time to add a couple more tablespoons of flour, and then you're gonna wait for the flour to mix in. Once it mixes in, you'll add more flour. You wanna keep doing this until all your flour is mixed in. And look at this dough. So I've got a baking sheet here, and I'm going to line it with parchment paper. The good thing about these cookies is you don't have to chill this cookie dough. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna scoop the cookies onto our baking sheet here. They're not gonna spread too much. I'm using my trusty 2-ounce ice cream scooper. This is my go-to cookie scooper. It makes the most delicious, nice sized cookie. I've linked it down below for you. It is perfect and the best kitchen tool to have. But if you don't have one or you don't want one, then you can also use 2 tablespoons and measure them out that way. All right, you're gonna take your cookie dough, you're gonna use your thumb, and you're just gonna do like a little imprint in each cookie. And what this is doing is making some room for our streusel. So they look like little nests, don't they? Little nests that we're about to fill with deliciousness. Now, we are going to put our streusel in the center of these beautiful cookies. Here's our streusel we made earlier. You're gonna take a decent amount of streusel. I don't necessarily like to measure this part because the more streusel, the better. You wanna jam it into the center of each cookie. I like to crumble it a little bit so there's some like, you know, it just doesn't look like a log sitting in the middle of a cookie. Kind of just looks crumbly, but that's kind of what you're looking for. Don't they look so cute? We're gonna pop these in the oven at 400 degrees for 9 minutes, okay? These bake very fast, and I can't wait for you to see what these look like. We're gonna be making a fantastic and easy icing to drizzle on top of our cookies. All right, so we have 1 cup of powdered sugar, and to this, I'm gonna add 2 tablespoons of melted butter, unsalted. We're also gonna add a little flavoring here. I'm gonna add half a teaspoon or a teaspoon of vanilla. I'm gonna add a tablespoon of heavy cream or heavy whipping cream, whatever you have on hand. You could also use milk, and you could even use oat milk or almond milk if you prefer, but I like to use heavy whipping cream. And I'm gonna add a tablespoon at a time. You're probably gonna add about 3 tablespoons in total, but I like to add a little bit at a time because I wanna make sure I get the perfect consistency of icing, and it comes together super fast. And I'm telling you, it's probably one of the best frosting icings that you could make. Look at these. Don't they look so beautiful? And you see how the streusel melted a smidge, but definitely held its shape in the center. And they definitely didn't need that much room around because they don't spread out. They like puff up. We definitely don't want to ice our cookies now. We want to make sure our cookies are completely cooled before we add the icing. If we were gonna add the icing right now, it would just melt and seep into the cookie and make a giant mess. So we're gonna wait for our cookies to cool completely before we ice them. To get that perfect drizzle, I like to use a piping bag to get it. If you don't have a piping bag, do not worry. You can use a sandwich bag or a zip top plastic bag. You're just gonna add it to the bag and then smush it all to one corner. And then when you're ready to pipe, when your cookies are cooled, you'll snip the tip and you'll be able to drizzle till your heart's content. But because I do a lot of baking here in my house and I make a lot of cookies and things like that, I love having piping bags on hand so I can get the perfect drizzle. And I'm gonna use a spatula and just put it in my piping bag. After a couple minutes, they should be easy to lift up and place on a cooling rack so they can finish cooling completely. We have been waiting long enough. These cookies are nice and cooled. So I'm just gonna take this icing and do my best at drizzling it across the cookie. And like I said before, I like it nice and thick so it holds its shape. And these don't have to be perfect. In fact, I would welcome anything but perfection here. You just want them to have a nice little drizzle of frosting on your cookie. I think earlier in the video, I kept saying the perfect drizzle. To get that perfect drizzle, but I guess now it's the unperfect drizzle. You just want to drizzle your cookies however you want, however it comes out of the bag. It doesn't have to be perfect. This honestly is my favorite part. I love frosting things, icing things with a piping bag. These look like they could be sold in like a cookie shop, honestly. Oh, that was a big bite. Look at the center in there. Yum. That streusel is what makes this cookie so delicious. Also, the icing on top brings everything together. Yum. This is the perfect bite. You've got the icing, the streusel, the cookie. Here I go. Maybe save this recipe and bust it out for an Easter gathering with your family. These are so good. If you liked this video, please give it a thumbs up. That really does help out the channel. And if you aren't subscribed yet, please hit that subscribe button, and I will see you next Thursday. Bye.